Gentlemen, welcome to our Manhood 101 course. My name's Jeff Purkiss. I'm the founder of Squires2Knights Ministries. We've got several different men who are going to take you through the lessons of Manhood 101. Together with 3 other courses, this series will take you on a quest for manhood. I call it a quest because we're going after something that can be hard to find. Our videographer is PJ Mills. He recently graduated from high school. And while we take these lessons very seriously, PJ's going to help us keep this fun and interesting. Guys, we've got to restore authentic manhood in our culture today. Virtually all of our social problems can be linked to a single problem. For generations now, we haven't really taught our boys how to be men. You all are the next generation of men. So you guys probably in your teens are looking for a definition of manhood. You've probably never really thought of it that way. The problem is, in our modern culture, that definition can be hard to pin down. Over the years, our society has twisted and distorted God's design for men. And the cultural pressures on men, especially young men, are taking them down the wrong path. The young squire of the medieval period had a completely different experience than you do today. He looked to the knight as everything he wanted to become. And his pursuit of knighthood put him on a clearly defined path. He knew exactly what was expected of him, and his mentor expected no less than the standards set for him. A knight was chivalrous. He treated women and children with respect and honor. A knight was reverent. His faith in God was unwavering. A knight was strong and courageous. He was trained to protect his kingdom, his family, and even his neighbor. These are only a few of the primary traits of a knight, and a squire who was in training to become a knight went through a vigorous training process for more than 5 years before he himself would be dubbed a knight. If we considered a modern-day knight, what would he look like? What would he stand for? It's hard to pin that down because our culture can't make up its mind about a definition of manhood. We seem to have gone in one of 2 extremes. A man is all too often either an egotistical brute, vulgar and offensive, or he's a sensitive New Age wimp without backbone and without direction. So you, as young men, have to know where you're going on your quest for manhood, or you'll never get there, and many don't. There are way too many 30-year-olds today who are no more than adolescents. They've never really grown up, and they just wander and flail through life. Well, I'm excited to offer you guys a biblically sound definition of manhood. Squires2Knights Ministries, or S2K, has derived 12 topics to teach and describe authentic manhood as it was designed by God. These 12 principles come from 3 Bible verses. We call them Knighthood Verses. Through this Manhood 101 course, you'll easily memorize the Knighthood Verses, and hopefully you'll take the lessons with you throughout the rest of your lives. The first of the Knighthood Verses establishes fundamentals, Luke 2:52. And Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and in favor with God and men. As guidelines for men, we go to our second verse, 1 Corinthians 16:13 and 14. Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, do everything in love. And finally, we understand our identity through the third verse, 1 Corinthians 15:49. And just as we have borne the likeness of the earthly man, so shall we bear the likeness of a man from heaven. 3 Bible verses, 12 principles to define manhood. Let me list the 12 topics for you. The fundamentals are wisdom, stature, favor with God and favor with men. Our guidelines for men are be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, act like men, and be strong. Do as a Nike slogan, just do it, and everything in love. Finally, our identity from Adam to Christ. And by the way, the core theme for the Squires teaching is buried right in the middle of 1 Corinthians 16:13. Act like men. In Greek, andriazomai. We'll spend more time on this topic than any of the others, breaking it down into 5 roles for men and 4 responsibilities for men. See if you can remember these, because we're going to have you write them down in your workbook. The 5 roles are disciple, servant, husband, father, and patriarch. And the 4 responsibilities are spiritual leader, servant leader, provider, and protector. We'll see if you can remember these a little later. Over the next week or the next 6 weeks, depending on your course schedule, we're going to dissect these 12 principles. We're going to paint a picture of manhood as God intended it to be. And then, if you have the opportunity to go on to our Manhood 201, 301, and 401, we're going to complete an extensive study that will bless you, as well as your future family, the church you belong to someday, and even the community that you'll live in as an adult. We so desperately need authentic men to lead and serve in our society. Thank you guys for being willing to be part of this venture.
I live north of San Antonio. Here in the Alamo City, we love our Spurs, and for good reason. Not only have we spent a lot of time in the playoffs and won a number of championships, but we've had some of the best role models in professional sports. David Robinson, Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott, to name a few. Tim Duncan, of course, has been the backbone of the team for most of his career. Starting off as Rookie of the Year, he's got enough MVP trophies to fill a showcase and enough championship rings to fill one hand. Tim has enjoyed enough limelight to feed any robust ego. But guess what? You don't see the hype and the flash of your typical go-to man. It's hard to even pinpoint a dominant skill that makes him stand out. And that's exactly why Shaquille O'Neal gave him a particular nickname. If you know it, wait till the workbook discussion and we'll get back to it. In the meantime, I'm going to address the Knighthood Verses again. We'll start to focus on the specific lessons from the first of the 3 verses, Luke 2:52. And Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and in favor with God and men. If you read through Luke 2, you find a brief history of the life of Jesus. In fact, in the cartoon movie A Charlie Brown Christmas, you may remember Linus telling the story of baby Jesus. He quotes directly from Luke 2. But later in Luke 2, we'll find a story of Jesus the teenager. He travels to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover with his family. Then he stays behind when his family goes home. He stays behind to continue talking to the teachers in the temple court. And here's where this verse is so relevant to you guys. This verse actually describes the years following the event in Jerusalem. In other words, his teenage years. Jesus grew. He grew in wisdom. He grew in stature. He even grew in favor with God and in favor with men. To finish up today's lesson, we're going to cover the first 2 topics from Luke 2:52, wisdom and stature. We'll cover the rest in the next lesson. But first, a little grammar lesson. You guys, I'm sure, remember what a noun is, a person, place, or thing. And a verb, of course, is an action word. So is the word wisdom a noun or a verb? Easy answer, right? Of course, it's a verb. So is the word wisdom a noun or a verb? Easy answer, right? Of course, it's a noun. But I'm going to prove that the word wisdom implies action, as if it were a verb. If I see 7'6" Yao Ming on the basketball court, it's easy to ascertain that he's tall, right? If I see Arnold Schwarzenegger on the big screen, I know he was picked for the part because he's big and strong. But if I look at an old family photo from when I was a kid, I can't tell if my dad is wise or not. I have to see him in action to know if he has wisdom. Why? Because wisdom is knowledge coupled with right action. So you see, wisdom does imply action. Here in a few minutes, you're going to come up with your own definition of wisdom. But first, let's consider some misconceptions about what it means to have wisdom. If a guy has a high IQ, does that mean he's also wise? What about knowledge? If a guy is well-read, has studied extensively for years, maybe he's a PhD. Does that mean he's also wise? Here's one for you. What about an old man? Does his experience equate to wisdom? The answer to these questions is not necessarily. A smart guy could be wise.
Knowledge is probably required for wisdom, but doesn't guarantee wisdom.
What about age, though? Proverbs 20:29 says, "The glory of young men is their strength, and the honor of old men is their gray hair." So a benefit to youth is strength, and a benefit to age is gray hair. Now wait a minute. How is gray hair a benefit? You see, this verse does imply that with age comes wisdom. Now, certainly there are plenty of old fools, right? So age doesn't guarantee wisdom. We can say, however, that experience and maturity does promote a wise outlook on life. What kind of things get in the way of gaining wisdom? The answer to that question is actually quite simple, but here's the problem. The hindrances for gaining wisdom are usually quite subtle. Things like pride, greed, and selfishness, which are actually just part of human nature. They can cause us to reject true wisdom, especially at your age. Somewhere around age 16, give or take, you guys are going to think you know everything. Don't let this happen to you. Maybe it's too late and you're already there. But guys, you're going to want to take the advice of those who are older. Remember, the culture around you, your peer group, they're usually trying to sway you to foolish choices. So you've got to be on your guard. You've got to watch out for the sin nature that can cause you to reject true wisdom.
You've got to recognize the need for humility, unselfishness, and faith in your God to know how to put knowledge into right action. Then you can be truly wise.
Our next topic, as we continue to discover God's design for men, is stature. What comes to mind when you think of the word stature? I think of the statues carved out of marble stone during the Renaissance period. You know, every muscle looks chiseled, but the word stature in this verse actually refers to standing height, but I think we usually think of the word stature meaning size and strength. So if you're going to grow in stature, can you veg out in front of the big screen TV or sit in front of the video game all day, every day? No, you can't. And to think that the heroes in most of our movies and our battle video games are big and strong in stature. So rather than imagine or simulate your own physical size and strength, I think you better get off the couch and out of the chair and stay active. That's the key. Can you think of any Bible characters who portray physical size and strength? How about Samson? You guys remember the story about Samson, don't you? We'll get back to Samson a little bit later in the workbook discussion. How about Samuel? There's actually a Bible verse about Samuel that's almost identical to Luke 2:52. 1 Samuel 2:26. And the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor with the Lord and with men. What's very interesting, okay, it's not really that interesting, but it gets to the point I'm trying to get to here, and that is that the word stature in Luke 2:52 refers to size, and the word in 1 Samuel 2:26 refers to growth and nourishment.
And see, all of this is important as you continue to grow, so eat right and exercise. It's really that simple.
Thanks again, guys, for joining me on this quest for manhood. It may sound kind of hokey, but I believe the vision that you will take from this course and the other three of you, if you have a chance to take them, will have a compounded return for you, your future family, workplace, church, even your community. God designed men for specific purposes, and He has a plan for you. Memorize the 3 knighthood verses and apply what you learn. Grow in wisdom. Use your knowledge for right action. Grow in stature. Stay physically fit and healthy. Grow in favor with God and men. Always be on your guard and stand firm in the faith. Act like men, guys, men of courage and strength. Do everything in love. And remember, you were born with the likeness of the earthly man, and if you follow Christ, you will bear the likeness of the man from heaven. Now enjoy a discussion among yourselves as you go through the workbook for Manhood 101. Take your time with the discussions. Don't breeze through them. Talk about the topics. Scribble down some answers to the questions in the workbook. Highlight or underline the verses that you look up in the Bible, and maybe jot down some notes in the margins. Finally, pray together, guys. Then spend a little time in the homework before we meet for the next lesson.